Our next panelist I will come to is Reiko Harima. Is and Reiko is the executive director of the Asian Migrant Center, she has been coordinator of the Mekong Migration Network and its activities, and she's got a lot of experience in looking at this whole movement across the Mekong region. And for those who who I will ask Reiko largely because I think, Reiko, in some ways, there is a similarity between the India-Nepal border in terms of fluidity of movement, but there has been some kind of bilateral agreements on regulation of this. Can you share with us what are the experiences then of people who move across the Mekong? And just for the sake of the people on the call, if you can, who might not know not be fully familiar with the Mekong region, if you can say which are the countries that are involved there.
Sure.
Reiko?
Thank you, William. Thank you for a nice introduction, and thank you for all the organizers for inviting me to this meeting. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of similarity, and before I go over it, or actually at the same time I explain the situation, I would like the MFA organizer to sort of scroll down the pictures, because I feel that the photos sometimes explain more than the words. So when I got this invitation, and when William asked the question of the border, and earlier you were saying the borders, in this case in Mekong, are they walls or what did you say, bridges? I think we can sort of see it in our own eyes, how migrants would see it. So this is like borders, what borders mean in the physical sense in Mekong region. Can you go to the next pictures, please? Sorry, can you move the picture, MFA?
Rakesh, next picture.
Okay, so this is the official immigration checkpoint, and this is what is called informal migration channel, informal crossing. So just wanted to show the three pictures, because for me, that's sort of these migrants are relatively relaxed faces explain a little bit about the borders as well. So William, so you asked me to give explanation about the MOU and the bilateral arrangement in the Mekong first as a background, right? So as a matter of a background, so Greater Mekong subregion refers to the subregion that includes Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and Yunnan province of China. And as we've been discussing, and as you can see in the picture, the borders are very, very porous. And I mean, the migration has been part of people's lives, livelihood for a long, long time, for decades. And so in the past couple of decades, migration has been largely through, all of it has been through the informal channel. But there have been a certain level of bilateral, basically, efforts in regulating migration. And I think it's been sort of catching up in terms of also statistics, looking at so migrants who come through fully formal channel in this region are called MOU migrants, migrants who came through under the Memorandum of Understanding procedures set up by the Memorandum of Understanding. And until very recently, the numbers of migrants who came through this process has been very small, like initially a few hundred for many years and then 1,000. But like as of August 2020, that has, in case of Thailand, that has reached nearly 1 million. That's like 920 something thousand migrants who came through this MOU process, legal migration channel. So the efforts has been catching up. But that's still out of estimated total 4 million migrant workers. So you can imagine that the majority of migrants are still crossing borders informally. And when you think of what do these borders or the border control mean for migrants, then I think one is we can look at both the process of the migration itself, but also the second part for their implication is what happens if you migrate legally or through informal channel. So first of all, in terms of the legal migration channel under this MOU process, for migrants, it's still very time consuming, not very efficient, and also very centralized. So for migrants who live very close to the border, for them, it doesn't make sense at all to having to go to the capital city to get all the documentation done before they migrate. It's much closer to migrate to the city across the border. So that's a sort of administrative issue with the current legal migration channel. But also the other implication is once they migrate through legal channel, would they be assured that they would have much better labor and social protection, and also their wages are secured? And so far, many of the migrants that we have interviewed, we have worked with, all say it's not necessarily the case. Many migrants, for example, the migrant agriculture worker that we have interviewed recently in Panga, explained that she came through MOU process, but regardless, she still gets stopped on the street and has to pay. And the other migrant was also sort of sharing with us that they still get much less than the minimum wage. So when you're thinking of millions of people who are already crossing border relatively in a relaxed manner like this, I think the border control only works when migrants who themselves make decisions, who are social actors themselves, who have information to network of people and information to access to information. When they have all this, only when they're convinced that migrating through legal channel would secure them, would assure them the much better labor rights, good social protection, portability of social protection, and wages protected, only then they would start coming through this legal channel. Then border management would function.
Can I ask you then, and again, based on what Srishti has said, and I think this is a good contrast to look at in the two pictures that you have shown this kind of, the picture that is on the screen now, this kind of easiness and the smile on migrants' faces and crossing this kind of channel. And then the previous picture in which there was really a kind of regulation process. When you look at what both you and Srishti are saying, I'm wondering, and I think what is nice, what you have said is a large part of borders is also how migrants themselves perceive them, you know. And when Srishti says in India, the Nepalese going into India, there is no social protection, there's no access to justice and all this kind of thing. So the workers who are going in the picture now, would they be able to have those kind of rights, access, or they remain undocumented and irregular? That is that something, because you've already said that those who go in the regular manner, they also have challenges with regard to access to rights. What about these workers who go in an irregular manner? Are they able to navigate their rights?
As many of you may know, like in Thailand, in this case, I'll focus on the main destination country in Thailand, in Mekong. In Thailand, they have been implementing this process called first registration and also nationality verification process, which is done in collaboration with countries of origin. So it means that although many migrants come through informal channel, there have been some windows basically of opportunity to register their status and become documented, semi-legalize their status and have access to social security if they have registered and if they're employed in informal sectors. So in that sense, even though they, yes, initially migrated through informal channel, as long as they have had access to the social security, the registration and employed in formal sector and then enroll in social security system, then you have access to social protection. And in terms of if you're referring to labor rights, then in principle, in case of Thailand, the National Labor Protection Act applies to all workers. So in that sense, even if you remain undocumented, in principle, it still protects workers' rights. So for MMN, for us, the advocacy point is regardless of their status, do please implement the Thai National Labor Act and strengthen the also labor inspection, which the number has been still relatively quite limited. So we feel that of course, in principle, we are not disagreeing to the importance of border management. but it's not necessarily automatically linked between being undocumented and labor rights violation. And it also is not necessarily the case that the labor rights cannot be protected from the perspective authority if migrants remain undocumented. Okay, I'm done. Is William still there?
These are only 5 slides, I think.
Sorry, are you asking me about the slides? Yes, I put only pictures because the organizer asked us specifically not to use PowerPoint.
William? Oh, give me a second, I think he muted. No. Some network problem.
Okay.
Sorry, he'll be joining soon.
No problem.
2 minutes.
If the presentation is the same question and all, we can continue then.
Eddie, are you there?
Shall I continue speaking, or would
Yes.
other speaker like to speak? Shall I? Okay. So I wasn't too sure what William's next question would be, but then I was thinking to suggest, I guess recommend, that any effective border management would require clarity, because at the moment, sorry, I haven't mentioned the background for this point yet, but from migrants' perspective, the policies regarding the border and immigration matters have been constantly changing. And each time they receive policies, it's usually 1 year or 2 years effective policies, and it lacks long-term comprehensive policies, and the migrants, because of the nature of the policies, migrants are not informed well in advance. So as I mentioned earlier, if migrants do not, if they are not convinced of the importance and benefit of this formal migration channel, and if they are not informed of the policy planning of the next 5 years, 10 years, then it's difficult also for them to plan. So I was going to suggest that the border management, effective border management would require clarity and also long-term policies, and they need to be affordable, efficient for migrants, and the process should be decentralized. And these also border management policies and practices implementation would need to be subject to very strict oversight, and would to prevent the arbitrary enforcement of border control. And they also
All
need
right.
to be compliant with labor and social protection. Hello, William, you're back.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm back. Just to say thank you. I heard that part, and I will come back to you on this as well. That you are saying that borders need to be regulated, right? That's what you're saying. Yeah, but you're also asking for that they have to be better regulated so that rights of migrant workers are not kind of sacrificed in the process, or deprived in the process.
William, sorry, just one point. I also mentioned earlier, I think when your connection went, that in terms of the labor right itself, it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to the legal migration process and the legal migration status, because in case of Thailand, the Thai National Labor Protection Act does clearly cover all the workers, including undocumented migrants.
And that's a good point. And I'd like, Srishti, as you are listening to Reiko on this, it would be nice for you to reflect as you come back on this question, is exactly that, is that even if workers go, is there a possibility of Nepalese workers' rights who have, because the treaty allows them to cross over to work, so can they fall under the labor law of India and therefore have the same rights as Indian workers? Is that not part of the treaty, or is that absent in the treaty? And could that be strengthened in the treaty as a, under a bilateral agreement or something? But I'll come back to you on that.